In 30 minutes, broadcasting's finest duo will hit the airwaves. And prepare for the incomparable Opie and Anthony Show. Only a show this big could have a pre-show this good. Welcome to the Opie and Anthony pre-show with Sam Roberts.
Welcome is right. Good morning. Hello. It's time for the Opie and Anthony pre-show on a Wednesday, live here in the Closet Studio, attached to the Opie and Anthony main studio, counting down the minutes before Opie and Anthony go live for another great day of radio. I am Sam Roberts, and if you don't believe it, you can ask yourself by calling me at 866-WOW1WOW. That's 866-969-1969. Call up the pre-show. We're live. We're going to be talking about everything that's going down on today's show, everything that went down on yesterday's show, the same thing we do every morning here on the Opie and Anthony show, the Opie and Anthony channel, right before the Opie and Anthony show begins. And for those of you that follow the guys on social media, it is absolutely crucial that you do your homework when it comes to being a real Opie and Anthony show listener. It is absolutely imperative that you bring your workbooks home and you do your studying and you do your research, because part of that is the social media element. You have to follow Opie, Anthony, and Jim on Twitter and Facebook and all their various things, because last night Opie posted something on his YouTube channel that we've talked about many times on the air before, that I am sure we are going to get to a little later this morning. I'll talk about it in a few minutes. Of course, it relates to his past and to Anthony's past. The pre-Jim Norton days, if you will. The Opie and Anthony show has been doing this for 20 years, so there are some embarrassing moments that take place throughout those 20 years, and this is one of them. We'll get to that in a few minutes. We'll talk about it. 866-WOW1WOW, 866-969-1969. But talking about the past of the Opie and Anthony show and looking back, we were kind of realizing yesterday that while Opie and Anthony have been doing radio for 20 years, it's now almost 10 have been spent on satellite radio. We realized yesterday it's almost 10 years since Opie and Anthony signed to XM, then obviously merging with Sirius XM. But I thought it was interesting because, number one, Jim remembered Opie talking to him and saying, yeah, we're coming back. But number two, talking about the time slots. People don't remember. I mean, maybe they do, but we don't really think about the fact that Opie and Anthony was an afternoon show for years. I mean, when it was at its most successful on New York local regular radio, it was the biggest afternoon show there was. But it's been a morning show for so long, we don't even associate it that way anymore. And Jim and Opie were talking yesterday, I guess Anthony too, about the transition and kind of deciding the show was going to move from afternoons to mornings. Let's listen.
That's fucking 10 years ago.
It's ridiculous.
Crazy. I can't believe it's that long.
10 years of just stuck in the mud.
I remember you getting off the train. You were coming back. You and Ann had gone to D.C.
Right.
And I met you at the train at the garden or whatever it was when you got off. I was still living at my old place. And you were like, yeah, man, we're going to go to mornings. Yeah, we made love. and I had the sailor outfit on, and you dressed like the girl. We did the famous picture. And
yes.
It was, but no, you're like, yeah, we're going to mornings, man. I'm like, fuck, I was so bummed out at that time.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't want to go to mornings. I was like, we should stay in the afternoons.
Yeah,
I was we got to go to mornings.
too.
Yep.
Yeah, I was like, how am I going to do radio without beer?
And now you guys want to stay in mornings, and I want to go to afternoons.
Yeah. It's not even want to stay in more. I hate getting up, dude. I hate it. I just think it's better for us. But I hate the waking up.
Who knows?
I don't enjoy it.
Fuck knows.
I did find it's weird to think of that as a transition. Like to think of the fact that, yeah, at one point the show kind of just decided to go to mornings. Because now, as brutal as this schedule is, I mean, it would be hard to picture this show any other way. And I think a lot of the listeners are also so used to waking up with a live show, specifically this great pre-show, that it's hard to think of anything going any other way. I just found it very, very interesting. We got in, of course, everybody's been talking about the weather. We got into the weather yesterday. It was so funny because there's not a flake of snow on the ground here in New York, but because the snow was such a big news story this winter, because there was so much snow for like 2 months here in New York, they started a week ago prepping us all over the radio for the snow and saying, oh yeah, nor'easter's coming, there's going to be 6 inches of snow, it's going to be all over the roads. And then as the days went on, they started to downplay it a little. Well, it may not be 6, but it will be 1 to 3. Well, Long Island's going to get hit harder than the city, to the point where yesterday I actually heard a news report saying it could be as much as 1 to 3 inches on unpaved surfaces. I was like, I've never heard a weather forecast specifically for grass. Like, okay, the whole reason that we listen to the weather is so we know how to drive. Nobody's driving on the grass. But they had to be like, well, there is still a danger of some snow. Not a drop of snow on the ground. But we got into weather and stuff, and I'm sure we'll talk about that today, because the news kind of locks on to this idea of a snowstorm coming, and they start prepping because they're like, okay, we can panic all morning and get everybody all scared. This is perfect. Who's going to turn off the news if a snowstorm's coming? Well, there might be a dusting on the grass. There could be. I hope. No, that's frost. But we got into weather-related stuff yesterday. We were talking about the tide changing, and this turned into a whole thing that was completely unrelated to the tide. But let's hear how it started. Let's hear the guys talking about the tide changing.
Like the way the ocean, for how huge the ocean is, waves should go inland anywhere between like 600 miles and fucking like 1 foot, and everywhere in between. It's giant. They're spinning around. It's fucking tides and waves and fucking
oceans are thousands of miles across,
and they barely move a couple of feet at where it hits the beach.
And high tide's like, wait, I think it's high tide. Well, I'm not really sure.
It came up 6 whole feet.
Right, I think it's high tide now.
600 miles.
It really should.
It should be crazy.
I think all that water would just push.
Fucking things hurtling through space 25,000 miles an hour.
Right.
It's flying around. There's water on it. I can't get a glass of water to my fucking couch without it flying. By the way, I don't drink water.
Exactly.
Get a glass of wine tonight.
You can't get that because your glasses don't recognize the fluid.
But high tide's 20 feet, 30 feet difference. That's it. You're right. It's crazy. Yeah, this Earth is fucking nuts.
Isn't the moon what makes that is pretty fascinating.
The moon?
Yeah. The moon makes the waves. Yeah. The gravitational pull, and all that happening.
Yeah,
and you're
tides
right. It moves a little bit.
Yeah, it's so slight when you look at it on a global scale like that.
Yep.
We should never know where the beach is.
We should never know where the beach is. You're right.
Where's the beach? I don't know. Hopefully not in my yard.
So it's just, we're shooting the shit. I should say we. I'm sitting there watching them shoot the shit about the tide. And I felt like it was one of those conversations, like a lot of conversations are on the Opie and Anthony show, where it's the same conversation that you have with your buddies. It's not terribly serious. You know what I mean? It's not life or death here. We don't need to make sure we're not researching for this conversation. And I don't even think it sounded like the purpose of that conversation was to inform the listening public of the way tides work. It was just like, we just happen to be talking about this right now. One of the callers called up, and this caller, I guess, did not realize that the guys kind of started yesterday's show a little fed up with some of the style of some, not all, but some of the callers. And this was the exact style of call the guys were fed up with. Let's play the track.
Ralph, what's the problem?
20 and 30-foot tides? Where do you go to the beach?
I said 20 or 30-foot tide changes, meaning between...
Yeah.
In a storm, it happens.
What are you talking about?
Those are extreme circumstances.
Maybe in a storm, but not every day.
Yeah.
The high tide every day is like maybe 5 feet.
Yeah.
From low tide?
Yeah, from low tide to high tide.
From low tide to high tide, most Long Island beaches are more than 5 feet. What are you talking about?
Are you talking depth or up the beach?
We're talking the tide line.
You're talking up the beach, like if you measure from low tide
I got you.
when you hit the water, and then high tide tide where the little seaweed line
And we just threw the number out. I'm guessing the average Long Island beach is about 20, 30 feet between high tide and low tide, if I had to guess.
If you give it, you got to be able to take it. We're here to give it to you.
we were just talking about.
Yeah, no shit. Take what? You're the idiot.
Take it.
You're not listening.
20 to 30 feet. You're not saying it right. Don't fucking blame me.
What did I say wrong?
Because if you talk about a change in tide, you don't talk about how far the fucking water goes up the sand. You talk about vertical height. That's a tide change. That's how you measure.
Oh my God! I'm talking as a layman. When you walk the beach, you go, "Oh, low tide was down over there, and now high tide is up
20
here."
feet up
so it's
further.
20. Thank you, Ralph.
I'm assuming
go away,
you mean
brother.
how far, not the height of the actual wave.
course
He means
not.
depth.
Have you been hanging around with Lady Di too long?
Oh my God.
Are you trying to get something going? Because I'm not in the mood, you idiot.
Let's say it's low tide.
You know
right?
exactly what I was trying to say.
Yeah, you're at the low tide mark.
Will you listen? You might learn something, Ralph.
There's two ways to look at it. If you're at low tide and you're at the low tide mark, and then high tide comes in, and you're still standing at the low tide mark, how high is the water on your body? It's probably going to be up to your neck, maybe, whereas it was at your feet.
Right.
So that's like a 4-foot tide
Right,
wave.
probably 4 or 5 feet.
But if you now look at where the low tide mark is, and then the high tide mark on the beach, it could be upwards of 20, 30 feet.
And that was the
further.
whole bit because
But
we're
that was
talking
the bit.
about
We're talking about how far
how
the
much
water
the
would go
water
on
comes.
land.
Thank you.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
why the bit worked.
So frustrating. Like you don't want to fall into these arguments with listeners that are just. I think that caller was just trying to get under Opie's skin, but it's difficult when you're like, no, you don't understand my point, and they're like, yeah, but fuck you though, and you're. "Ah!" But they let him have it because they were kind of from the start of the show just a little fed up with some of the style of callers. 866-WOW1WOW 866-969-1969. We're live here on the pre-show. If you want to be a caller on this show, I haven't gotten fed up with you guys yet, so feel free to call in. They got into exactly what they meant and what type of callers they were kind of sick of. Just after that, let's listen to them talking about the petty listeners. Yummy.
What these guys went through, what this guy went through was terrible.
Wow, I'm going to look this guy up.
Yeah, Louis Zampieri.
Look at yeah.
Yeah, go on. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, finish. Sorry.
No, he's just like I said. He was in 1939. He's shaking hands with Hitler, and then in 1944, he gets drafted.
Gotta take the good with the bad.
I can tell you what he's doing in 2014.
Hold on, there's someone always just waiting around the corner. Go ahead, Buzzard in Boston. Go ahead.
Hey, O&A, this guy knows the story very well, but the fucking guy's name is Louis Zamperini.
Oh, I'm sorry. I mispronounced his name.
What'd you say?
Zampieri.
He was saying, yes, Zampieri.
Really?
Oh no!
You know the whole book, but the fucking
Infighting, it just
So petty. It's like a bunch of fucking flight attendants.
Why the fuck do we have the most petty listeners?
petty.
I talked to other radio guys. They don't have these petty listeners.
Oh my goodness.
I think it was good. I think it was good enough where if you were interested in what this guy was saying, you would be able to find it on Google.
Or he might call up and just go, hey, I'd like to correct the guy on the name. It's
Right.
Zamperini.
Right, in a nice
Not
way.
This fucking asshole.
I don't think you'd find him on Google. You'd find some fucking French or Italian cook.
All right, fair enough. Fair enough, Buzzard.
I sometimes feel like there's a high percentage of the people who listen to the Opie and Anthony show are the same people that go to movies and don't pay attention to the plot whatsoever. Just try to find the inconsistencies. Just try to find no, the hanky was in his left pocket in the first shot. Like, you ever go to the movies with somebody like that that's just whispering to you like, he had red shoes on before. Yeah, fine. I don't care about it. The movie's not about his shoes. Bobby the Blue-Shoed Bandit. He's got red shoes on now, though. No, it doesn't matter about his shoes. But it's just people who always, they have to be right. It's almost like, I don't know what these fucking assholes are doing on the radio. They get it all wrong. You hear them talking about the tide this morning? The point is that Opie and Anthony make things entertaining. Not that they're experts. It's not Tide Radio. It's the Opie and Anthony channel. God damn it. Superfan Eric in Philadelphia.
Samuel Roberts, professional broadcaster. How are you on this freaking freezing cold Wednesday morning? I got to dust in the snow.
I'm great.
Hey, listen, Sam, I'm all fired up today.
You are?
Work. There was a little bit of dust of snow on my car. got the blood flowing because it's so freaking cold out. My Flyers are coming to New York to kick their stinking Rangers' asses tonight. I can't believe it. I can't wait. It's a freaking game of the week. I'm so fired up. I'm fired up for you, Sam. I'm fired up for the listeners. I'm fired up for my buddy Todd in Burlington. I'm just fired up. Hey, send Lady Di down. I got a hoagie that she can help you make.
Well, what are you going to be doing today? What is it that you do for a living?
I make hoagies in Philadelphia.
There
Great
he is.
job. Come on down.
All right, Superfan Eric, it's always a pleasure to hear from you.
That's a goddamn movie. It's everybody's pleasure to hear from me, the super fan of Philadelphia, of Sam Roberts, professional broadcaster, of the Philadelphia Flyers. Let's go Flyers.
All right, thanks, buddy. I love he cuts a promo every time. I'm starting to think that Superfan Eric is just a superfan of Superfan Eric.
I think he kind of has the same brain function as Roland does. It's just like these short little ideas that he just pushes together all at once.
Right, like he just has all these thoughts, and he's like, oh, I can make sentences out of these words. Like there's no actual point being made. Samsung and they got a new phone in Suits. What? You're just listing things that you like? You can separate some of that stuff, at least a comma or something. Fontaine in Virginia.
Hey, Sam. What's up, Sal?
We're
in there yet? I
Uh,
just have a comment. You know, the guys that O&A are talking about that do that,
Yeah.
their fucking home lives, their wives and girlfriends must be fucking miserable because they pick apart everything that's said, and some people should just be listeners.
Yeah, I wonder. It's working one of two ways, Fontaine. It's either they're at home picking apart everything that their wives and girlfriends do, or their wives and girlfriends just have them on the shortest leash you can possibly imagine, and their one outlet to finally be a man and to be right about something is to call a radio show and try to correct the hosts.
Touche, buddy. Fuck Brian Oliver.
That's right. I don't know who that is, but fuck him indeed. I will say this. Radio is the only medium where you can just pick up the phone and call the hosts. This is why other mediums don't do that. This is why, like, TV and all that, they have any TV show that even has phone calls, like Larry King or anything, has these ridiculous vetting processes to go through. No other medium other than radio can a person just pick up the phone and be like, yeah, I just want to say you guys are fucking assholes. It's like, well, great. Snowy in Michigan.
Samuel, how are you doing this fine morning?
I'm great, Snowy. How are you?
I'm great, too, after hearing how much happier I am now that Superfan Eric just said how much of a privilege it is for us to hear his, melodious voice on the radio.
He did say that. When I said it's always a privilege to hear from you, he said it's always a privilege to hear from me.
Yeah, for us to hear from him. He also, did he say something about it's a privilege for us to hear him?
Yes. No, he was talking about himself, yeah.
Yeah. I think Superfan Eric is starting to jump the shark here now after that comment.
We'll see.
Don't get me to clamp to hear from Larry again.
Well, I don't know. Thank you, Snowy. I kind of like the idea of a super fan calling up and just being a fan of himself. It's never been done in radio before, and I think that's the type of groundbreaking stuff that we should be doing. Speaking of groundbreaking comedian Jeff Dunham was on the show yesterday. And yesterday, we were talking before he got in. Well, let's play the clip real quick that we were talking about before he got in. We found out that the word tranny is offensive yesterday, and we were trying to figure out why.
I thought it would be a good chance.
I just want to see the trannies twerking.
Of course.
You're going to see his apology?
So then he said, he used the term tranny throughout the episode, and then he had to apologize for it because he got attacked by the LGBT people.
Whatever it is.
Or LGBT, right? LGBT.
Yeah, I don't know why it's a bad. I would love to know why tranny. Like, I get why most slurs are bad. Tranny's just an abbreviation.
Yeah. Because they needed a little power base.
It's really weird.
So stupid.
Bailey J always. We talked to Bailey about it. Bailey says tranny.
Yeah, she doesn't mind tranny.
Hit it.
What about the rap that you're using a term that transgender people feel is offensive to them?
Why?
You mean the term tranny?
Yep. Yes.
Well, I've just been educated. I won't use that term. I mean, honestly, I had no idea that you're not supposed to use that term. So now we'll find another term to use. But yeah, I didn't know that it was offensive to them, and I'm not interested. I'm not interested in offending people, so obviously I'll just
While you on the air.
Exactly.
There's no argument there.
You know what's that's weird. People, I look at this apology like that. And like we get pissed off about it because we talk for a living and we see how. But if you're just a guy doing something and someone's like, "That's offensive," a lot of people are like, "Oh, okay, I'll just use something else."
Right.
Like they don't care that much.
Yeah, Jerry's just like, "Oh, okay, I didn't know. I won't use it. Fuck it."
They'll write something else on the card for me to say.
Right. Yeah.
Could someone explain why that word is offensive? Because I still don't know why people would even think it's offensive.
No one would be able to come up with a good answer as to why tranny is offensive.
I think that's the crux of the whole conversation is that, okay, if it's offensive, and we'll, I guess we'll stop. But it's very interesting when a special interest group decides a word is offensive and then can't explain why. It's happening more and more lately that there is no actual reason why that would be offensive. Let's go to Nick in Connecticut. What's up, Nick?
Yeah, how you doing this morning, Sam?
Good, buddy.
O&A started that whole thing with their audience being all correcting them and being nasty because years ago, all the other radio shows weren't as accessible and everybody was like, oh, you can't get... O&A loved that stuff for years. And then I think with the advent of Jimmy, who really can't take someone saying something that he don't like to hear, that they take things really personal now, and they kind of hate their callers.
Well, I think it's also, I mean, it's like cyberbullying. It's one of those things where it's like, okay, if the listeners are going to call and take your jabs, that's okay. Because it's like, we'll leave it on the show. But now, they're on Twitter all the time, and it comes home with them, and you just got this...
they're idiots.
Right.
The people on Twitter are just friggin' idiots. Everyone knows that.
Everybody. All right, thanks, Nick.
Take care, Sam.
We also got an update from Roland. We were talking about how we couldn't understand him and stuff. He texted me, he said, lick my balls, I understand that. Which actually came through loud and clear on the text. I did. Perfect. I did, that was crystal clear. We were talking about the trannies and why it was offensive. We also brought up the fact that we want to do a smelliest old ass contest. We brought both of these things up with Jeff Dunham. When Jeff Dunham stopped by, famous comedian, of course, Jeff Dunham, the ventriloquist. And here's what he had to say about all of that.
Jeff, we were talking about trannies because we're learning today that you can't say tranny anymore now.
Why not?
I don't know.
What?
Jerry Springer got in a little bit of trouble for it. He had to apologize and say, hey, I didn't know.
He had a show called Trannies Twerking...
Twerking Trannies.
Twerking Trannies. So the whole show was him saying tranny, and then the LGBT people got mad.
Because maybe with a Y and apostrophe S.
That was it. He was calling him Gearbox. Yeah.
Good news, by the way. This guy could bring a 62-year-old escort. So
there you go.
We're also going to... maybe we shouldn't tell Jeff. We'll keep that one to ourselves.
What?
We might start sniffing... Who's she in the corner? Is she going to be offended?
That would be my wife.
Maybe I'll write it down then.
Yeah. It's just a dirty thing we want to do with an older lady in her 60s.
When is this?
She doesn't have headphones on, so she won't be able to hear. We want to sniff old ladies' asses.
Okay, why?
Because there's a show on TLC called like Cougar Wives or something. So I'm just curious as to what they smell. I have zero interest.
I have no interest.
And when is this going to happen?
We got to do 20 hours of radio a week. We got to fill up the time somehow.
I have no need or want to do anything.
I don't even want to shake their hands. The fucking jingle of a charm bracelet.
That's why Jeff Dunham is so great on our show. It's a different Jeff Dunham. You're never going to hear him talking about old women's assholes anywhere else. Ralph in Ohio.
Hey, I just had a question. Is Superfan Eric the same guy that does the weather report that, hey, it's snowing, oh my God, just babbling crap?
You mean the YouTube weather reporter? No, I do not think that's Superfan Eric. Superfan Eric makes hoagies. He does not do weather reports. Hoagies. He makes hoagies. We were talking about technology and watches. Technology, I guess everybody's focusing on the watches. Apple, they're all saying is going to come out with a watch. Samsung has come out with a watch. And Jeff Dunham was promoting it, but Opie was saying, no way. Let's listen to the watch debate.
But what's the problem with taking your phone out?
The fact that you have to take your phone out.
I guess.
Because the watch is such a piece of... Because people have nice
never liked
watches.
Watches, though.
No, but I'm saying, like if you wear like a $3,000 watch or that's not going to replace a Rolex. Will that technology catch on? Because you're competing with things that are such a fashion piece. I'm talking a lot.
People
but we have a whole
really
generation, like my kids don't wear watches.
I was just going to say that. People don't wear watches anymore because you got your phone.
That's a good point.
It's right there.
Of course.
What time is it? Boom.
So they're trying to bring back the watch, basically.
But what Apple's always was done, at least when Steve Jobs was around, is it created a niche that you didn't realize you needed.
Right.
So, if somebody, I don't know. I think it's going to be big.
I think it's pretty cool.
My TV earrings are going to flop. I have earrings that show popular TV programs on them.
What a horrid idea.
You have to stand in front of 2 mirrors to get the angle, and the sound goes right into your ear.
What was the thing you write on? The
cock?
That one, too. I don't know.
Kind of degenerated past talking about watches, but all I'm going to say is today Opie may be accessorizing with something that I'm not going to say it's hypocritical, but he might have changed his mind on whether or not watches are going to take off. That will not be the most embarrassing thing that Opie and Anthony both have to go through today. Jack in Chicago.
Hey, Sam. How's it going?
Good.
Just wanted to bring up the fact that Opie had you transfer over, 8 VHS tapes about 5 years ago of the Real Rock TV, and I was just wondering why you thought it's been about 5 years since we've gotten a taste of those, and what else might be on those tapes that we haven't seen yet.
Well, it's a good question, because that's what we were talking about at the top of the pre-show, and why I said Opie and Anthony will both be going through more embarrassment than wearing a watch. Because there is new Real Rock TV, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, brand new Real Rock TV. That's the TV show that Opie and Anthony did back in their Boston days when they were first starting out. We've caught them doing some of the things that they made fun of other radio shows for doing. We've seen them break into the boss's office and get tickets to give away. We've seen them. There's been a lot of douchiness that's happened over the years with Real Rock TV. And the caller was right, 5 years ago or so. I don't know if it was exactly 5 years ago. But I went through a ton. Opie gave me a whole crate of VHS tapes that I was transferring over and digitizing and putting on YouTube for him and all this stuff. And there was one clip that we could never find. I went through all these tapes. I could never find it. He insisted that there was some bit that was just awful that involved them torturing an Elmo doll. Last night, that bit was uncovered. Yes, we finally found the Elmo bit. Opie and me spoke about it immediately, edited it down. It's up on Opie's YouTube channel now at Opie Radio on YouTube, and we will be getting in depth on that Real Rock TV clip later today. The Elmo clip is finally found, and there are other Real Rock TV clips that we haven't seen before. I watched them myself last night. They will not disappoint. It's when Opie and Anthony were just a couple of young bucks coming up. And I was talking to Opie about it. He said it was so funny, and I'm sure he'll get into this today, but it was so funny because you can see the confidence that they have, and you can hear it in the clips. Even though they're doing these douchey things, and they're not ready to be as big as they got yet, you can see that there is no doubt in either of their minds that they're going to just be the biggest things in radio. And they're doing this douche chill stuff, but guess what? Somehow, they became the biggest things in radio, so hats off. They'll get into that here on the show today. Real quick, before we completely move on from Jeff Dunham, I thought this was the most interesting little tidbit of his entire interview. Again, Jeff Dunham is not the gossipy guy, but he got into an interaction he had with Louis Anderson.
Well, you didn't get hit on by Louis Anderson.
No, I damn. Did you really? Was he a good flirt at least?
Oh man, I was I got it. It was at that time. I was like, I got to get married. I got to do something because I understand. I got the dolls, and I get it. But it was awful. Yeah.
How did he hit on you?
That must have been uncomfortable.
Just an uncomfortable
thing.
Did
he rub your leg?
No.
It's comedy advice.
It was no. It didn't get that far. But it was, it was. There were a couple of hints. I'm like, hey, I gotta go.
I'd love to get to the bottom of what Louis Anderson's really got going on. Well, big show today. Joby Ogwin, I think that's how you pronounce his name. He's a base jumper, right? He jumps off mountains and shit. And this is good timing for him to be on after that base jumping off the Freedom Tower story. He will be on the Opie and Anthony show today. Of course, there was a story. I'd love to hear his take about two producers from CNN that were trying to break into the Freedom Tower to, I guess, show how easy it was, and they couldn't get in. And everybody's making fun of them now, so that's great. Nancy Grace is back in the news. There's a great clip of her obsessed with talking about porn. So we'll get into that on the Opie and Anthony Show. And of course, new Real Rock TV. It's my favorite thing to do. It gets no better. All you callers that want to call up and tell Opie and Anthony that they're doing something wrong, we're doing it to ourselves today as Opie and Anthony play Real Rock TV. All of that and more when the Opie and Anthony Show begins, which coincidentally is happening right now.